Hey, this is Raawel coming your way. We are here today to talk to you about my new book, Behind the Door. I'm sure some of you guys are going to have questions about the material and the content in the book. And Valerie had a lot of questions, and she had me thinking deeply about some things that I learned, some experiences that I've had. And so we're just going to vibe. I mean, this is not scripted or anything. We're just going to organically flow, and she can ask me anything about what's in the book. All right, Val, it's on you.
First and foremost, thank you very much for having me here. So the first question I want to ask you is, in the beginning of the book, you talk about different religions in different households. The first religion, I believe, was Jehovah's Witness,
Yep.
and the second religion was
Methodist.
So
yeah.
if you can mind explaining those two and the differences, just in case.
Okay, so some of you guys may be Christians out there. This book does not necessarily fit into a Christian genre.
Gotcha.
Because it does have some content that is very raw and it may be offensive to some people.
Right.
So I did grow up in my mother's house as a Jehovah's Witness, and I did the book studies, and I went knocking on doors and in field service and things like that. But on my daddy's side, I was baptized a Methodist.
Gotcha.
So that was the choir and Sunday school and Jesus and God are one. There's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Right.
So I struggled with both of those religions, you know, trying to find out who God was. But as I grew older and became a teenager, I started delving into Islam and Eastern Stars and Masons because I'm in search for God. So again, this book is not about religion, but about my experience with theology in my house and my family. It was very difficult.
And thank you for pointing that out, because I can see how a girl at your age can be so confused. I mean, did you want to dive into the confusion aspect of it?
Well, what's confusing is at one house I could have a birthday, and at the other one I couldn't have no birthday.
Exactly.
At one house I could have a Christmas, at the other house you can't have no Christmas.
Right.
And it's like, wait, what is God doing up there? He confusing me. But both sides would say God is not the author of chaos and confusion.
Right.
But in my mind, both sides of the families were confusing me. And I do know religion can lead to some kind of a bondage for people.
Yeah.
You can get caught up into doctrines and trying to keep the law and feeling unworthy and inadequate and shame because what is it about me that I can't keep these laws?
Right.
But I had to eventually break free, and it took years and years and years of going back and forth, getting saved and getting out there doing the wrong thing, and then get baptized again. And the doors of the church kept opening for me, and I kept walking up there. And it's like, why? It's not taking, it's not sticking with me. But you know what? I eventually found out God is in here. When they say you are the church, God is in here. And so that's where I found the Lord inside of me.
Now, your study was the Bible, correct?
Yeah, well, I had a lot of Bibles. I also had the Quran. I had the Mormons, what do you call it? I don't even know. The Churches of Latter-day Saints. They brought me their Bible, the Gideon Bible. I also had the Hebrew Israelites. I mean, I studied a lot of different types of theology.
But during the Methodist versus Jehovah's Witness,
during that time,
the Bible was your...
the Bible was my soul. You know, yes, that's the place where I went for both sides.
Okay. I don't want to divulge too much of the book. Okay, so
yeah,
in the Bible, the snake is used as a reference.
Yeah.
I hope you see where I'm going.
I see exactly where you're
so
going.
I'm trying to see, can I go there?
You know what? So, guys, what she wants to talk about a little bit, and you guys, I hope that this kind of whets your appetite. Something happened to me when I was about 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. And it's not uncommon. It's very common, as a matter of fact, in the Black community, where friends of the family touch you or funnel you or something like that. And it happened to me while I was reading the Bible to an older man, but he was telling me that snakes were good.
Exactly.
And I should learn how to tame a snake. And the snake was a metaphor for his private part at that time. So you should read about that. And yeah, it wasn't a good thing for me.
Right. And to just piggyback on that, this is more of a statement, by the way. During the 50s, 60s, and prior to, we have to deal with generational curses where when something sexual in nature takes place, it's a form of taboo. And when it's a taboo in each household, we don't express it.
Yeah.
We cover it up.
Yes.
So would you like to make a reference to that?
That is so, so, so true. And that is what keeps people in bondage when we don't talk about it and communicate and uncover it. When we continue to sweep it under the rug and bury it inside of ourselves, it develops that toxicity inside of us. And then we have bitterness and unforgiveness for the person who makes us cover it up and the person who did it. And then ourselves, we feel shame until we can expose that. So yeah, talking outside of the house and telling people your business, it keeps us in bondage, which is why Tyler Perry's movies resonate so much with people, because he shows how, things like that happen, particularly to Black women and Black men who perpetuate that, but also how it hurts them too.
And the sad part is, and I'm hoping you question, did they really know, or did they really turn the blind eye? Or was it a form of normancy because it happened to them previously? You can't teach what you don't know.
Yeah. So, I want to say it's all of the above, because every person's story is different.
Of course.
Some people do know, some people don't know, some people don't want to know.
Right.
So people have their different stories. And I hope that this book helps people to tell their story, or that if you don't want to tell your story, then mine is your voice, that I can tell your story through mine.
Okay. Tell me about your grandmother.
Yeah.
Your mother. Tell me about your mother.
My mother. The mother now or back then? Because she's
in the book, in the story.
So yeah, in the story. So my mother, when I was growing up, was very young. I think she was about 20 or 21 when she had me. My parents got married young, about 20 years old. They had my brother first, and they weren't married. And then when she was pregnant with me, she was like, "Oh, we got to get married."
Of course.
So they did get married, but that didn't stop her from going to the clubs and hanging out with her sister and kicking it, and leaving me with, her younger sister as a babysitter, because she was still young. She was still exploring, but she believed in education and working. Gotcha. She had a great work ethic. She worked for the East St. Louis Police Department and the Mary Brown Center back in those days, if people remember those things.
Yeah.
And she went to SCC, State Community College. So she was always a go-getter, and she loved us. But again, who is actually taught how to raise children? She just was learning as she go. I need this book that say how to raise children.
Yeah.
But, you just learn as you go. But again, she did love us, but she would go back and forth with my daddy. They would get into a lot of stuff, and she would leave him and come back, and leave him and come back. And that left us unstable. We moved around like a military family. It was very unstable.
Military in the same community. So, most people don't identify with the term neglect. Back in those days, let me say that. Now it's more prominent. You can say what neglect is.
Yes.
There's emotional neglect, there's psychological neglect, there's medical neglect, and there's physical neglect along with others. So dealing with your mother, what do you reflect on now? The type of neglect that you possibly felt then?
You know what? That's a really deep question. And I don't want to, a part of me wants to reflect from our recent conversations how she felt shame. Like, if I would have known these things was happening over your grandmother's, or if I would have known, I would have did this, because she didn't know.
Right.
And so she probably in her own self feels a sense of neglect, especially since I shared about myself getting burned when I was a baby. So she probably felt like there was some neglect.
Yeah.
And being a mother now of 4 sons, and wanting to have my children around me every single second, not even wanting to drop them off at any daycare center. And I don't know if that's a consequence of, hey, these things happen to me, so I want to overprotect them, or just a natural instinct of, you can't trust everybody, and I want to be a good mom, and I don't want to neglect my responsibilities of a mother.
Of course.
So from my perspective, I don't know if I would use that word, but again, like you stated, we both have DCFS background for ourselves and mandated reporters. And coming from that lens, I would definitely say she could have done better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there was some sense of you playing around too much, and now you have these kids as a responsibility, and you need to step up. But even today, young girls are going to feel that sting of I'm trying to work and go to school and provide for my kids. How can I still be a family? Because that family dynamic is torn apart. You don't have mom and daddy in there balancing
Yeah.
it. But that's a whole nother story. But
And I like to believe back then, a two-parent household was prominent. So I
yeah,
like to think that's another reason she possibly did not leave. Just like back then, divorces were taboos. You
that's
just
true.
don't do that. So I think that may have been a reason that she would have stayed and taken such turmoil. What do you think for
I
the
agree
father?
with you.
Okay, you
I
do.
agree with
Okay.
that. And then, you know what? There's love. I know that they loved each other. They
Okay.
loved their children and they wanted to make it work. But you know what? And we'll talk about this much later. I think that then and now we don't get the counseling and the help that we should.
Okay.
Either the mediation in the house or the therapy from some kind of a counselor that says, hey, I feel depressed, but I'm using these coping strategies
Yeah.
to try to deal with it. And so we don't go get the help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think your mom was torn because she was a hard worker. And I'm not focusing on her social activities, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about the hard working type of mentality she had. So she didn't think twice about leaving you guys home with dad
Right.
because it's a two-parent household. She
Right.
expect he would protect her.
Right.
And I think what I got from that chapter is kind of a sense of unknown because she's like, what happened to my baby?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm stuck at because we didn't really fully get his type of response. But by you being the baby, which is the victim at the time, what do you think?
My daddy had a lot of mental health issues that were unaddressed. He grew up as the only child, and then his parents were divorced and separated. And like you said, that wasn't uncommon. He would have been one of those minorities among the minorities of not having his dad there and involved in his life. So he was dealing with that in addition to he did not think his father committed suicide.
Right.
He thought somebody killed him. And so to carry that around, like, who could have killed my father because he loved life? But he also didn't know that his father came from the military and that his father had some mental health issues himself, post-traumatic stress issues and things like that himself. So my dad had things that he was grappling with in addition to experimenting with drugs at that time too.
I got you.